few minutes longer to try to soak up as much heat as possible, you hear the rooster crow. And at that moment, you're reminded that you have to get out of bed because there are several animals that rely on you. Hobby farming is a passion that myself and several people share. Today, we're going to talk about hobby farming. We'll discuss what you need to do to prep your home for livestock, chickens, goats, and livestock guardian dogs. So let's get started. When you're prepping your home for livestock, there's several steps you're going to want to take. Step one, you're going to want to make sure you research local laws in your area to make sure you can actually legally own livestock. In several cases, hobby farmers live in small towns outside of a major city, but those towns do not allow livestock. So you're going to want to make sure you research so whatever animal you bring home, you can actually legally possess. Step two, you're going to want to research adequate shelters. So you're prepared for whenever you bring that animal home. So you're going to want to research what size of a chicken coop you'll need, what size of a barn you might need, and what size of a pasture, because you're going to want to make sure you have adequate space for whatever animals you bring home. Now, step three is probably the most important of the steps, is researching and picking an animal. So if you decide on your hobby farm that you want to do chickens or goats, you're going to want to research to make sure that you get the type of animal that fits your best needs. So if you're going to want chickens for meat, you're going to want to do research to make sure what's the best chickens for that. If you want goats for meat or dairy goats, you're going to want to make sure that you're researching so you have the correct info, a specific goat or chicken that fits your needs. So now that we've talked about prepping your home, we're going to talk about chickens. But before that, with the research of finding the laws or the chicken coops and the fencing or even the type of animals, there's several resources available for you. So over here I have several books that I've done, that I've read during my research of hobby farming, and one of the books that stands out specifically is the Complete Guide to Raising Chickens, Goats, and Horses. It was published by the FFA Education, and it's just a wealth of knowledge. It's a great resource when researching different types of animals and things like that. So now let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about chickens. So chickens are probably one of the more common hobby farm animal because they're easy to maintain. So step one, when you're hobby farming with chickens, is you're going to want to make sure that you have adequate shelter. And when I say shelter, I mean chicken coop. So the nice thing about hobby farming with chickens is you can really alter your chicken coop to be whatever specific kind of coop you want. There are several key things that you do need in your coop. You're going to need a roosting box. Typically, chickens desire a cool, dark place when they lay their eggs, so a roosting box provides them someplace comfy. You're going to want a couple feeders and a couple waterers in there so your animals are getting the appropriate amount of nutrition and water. One of the books that I'm also going to reference for some of that information is the Backyard Hobby Farming for Chickens. In there, they talk about what kind of square footage you need per chicken. So typically, confined chickens need about 10 square feet a bird. So you're going to want to do some research to make sure your shelter is adequate. Step two is you're going to research to make sure you have the right kind of chicken. So if you're wanting a chicken that lays eggs or is for a companion, you're going to want to make sure you get something like a naked neck chicken or a Jersey. Those two types of chicken are specifically friendly and they're built more for companionship. So here I have a photo of a naked neck chicken. They are unique looking, so they're kind of cool. I also have a photo here of an inside of a chicken coop. So in here you can see the roosting box and the shavings and a nice clean coop. So now that we've talked about the kinds of chickens and what steps you'll need to keep the coops clean and what you'll need in there, let's talk a little bit about goats. So goats are considered the red-headed stepchild of hobby farming because they're very mischievous and they're hard to maintain sometimes. They're very difficult. Goats are definitely known as escape artists. So step one with hobby farming with goats is you're going to want to make sure you plan your pasture and your fencing very secure. According to an article for hobby farming with goats an acre or more, they state in there that you're going to want a very secure fence. The bigger the fence, the better the fence. The phrase was actually used, if a T-Rex can't get in, your goats can't get out. So once you get your fencing squared away, then step two, your research to figure out what kind of goat best fits your needs. So there are several different kinds of goats. You've got meat goats, and then you've got companion goats. So a meat goat is typically a Boer goat, but that goat is not good for companionship or dairy. I also have a photo of a good companion goat. It is called a Nubian goat. So this goat here would be a good goat if you want a companion or a dairy goat. So, we've talked about you need your pastures, you need your proper setup with your feed and stuff like that, with your fencing and your shelter. Goats require a barn or someplace to get out of the weather. And we've talked about what kind of goats. So let's move on to your livestock guardian dog. It is a small portion of hobby farming, but it's probably one of your more important. Your livestock guardian dogs are going to protect your livestock. So that is a Great Pyrenees is a good example of that. So what that dog does is that dog lives within your livestock. They'll live in the pasture with your animals, and they protect them from predators. So small aspect of hobby farming, but probably one of the more important aspects of it. With the goats also, if we go back to the goats real quick, we've talked about research. There's several good resources. There's the article for the acre, hobby farming under an acre, and then there's a book that's Backyard with Goats. It's fantastic. You should check it out. So we've talked about goats. We then talked about the guardian dogs. Again, a small portion, but a fantastic. So in conclusion, hobby farming can be a very rewarding experience. It teaches you dedication and time, and it's very rewarding. We've talked about prepping your home for livestock. We've talked about chickens, goats, and livestock guardian dogs. So I hope today the information I've provided you will spark an interest in hobby farming. Thank you.